Hi, everybody. Welcome to Padre's Ponderings. As you are going to guess right off the bat, we are giving Padre a pass on Ponderings today. Say that a couple of times because I practiced that. A pass with Padre for Ponderings. And we have also another special guest, not Rebecca Hamilton, but this is Beverly Adams, who is a church member here, involved in several things, but today we are going to be highlighting one of the ministries that she is a leader for, which is our Healing After Loss ministry, our grief support ministry. And we just thought that this time of year is hard for a lot of people. Mm-hmm. It's not as festive and joyous and lights and wreaths and cookies for everyone in their homes and in their hearts. And so we thought this might be an opportunity to just kind of talk about what HAL does, what kind of grief support we have here at the church, and then for everybody else who just might not even be in a season of grief, but just in a season of, some struggle here during the holidays, to kind of highlight some of the other care ministries which might be beneficial, a way to reach out to just get a little extra support. So we're going to talk with Beverly today and learn a lot more about healing after loss. So why don't you tell us kind of how long you've been in the ministry and what got you started in this?
I started taking HAL, Healing After Loss, after the death of my son quite a few years ago. I was in desperate need of help and had just about given up wanting to live again. And I heard about HAL. My friend Diane McNamara was the facilitator, and she said, why don't you take it? So I did, and I got so much help from it. Yeah. It really, really led me to believe that there was hope for me and that I had another mission to accomplish somewhere in my life before I, passed on myself. So it was a very rewarding experience.
Awesome. Then how did you become the leader? What made you want to step up into a leadership role?
She asked me, Diane did, to maybe be a helper on a team. So I joined a team. There were 4 of us. And just little by little, I progressed to an assistant lead facilitator. Yeah. And then Diane was my assistant. And we had new people coming in periodically to enter the team. We always usually have a team of 3 to 4 people.
And one thing to point out, everyone who serves on the team of HAL has gone through a significant loss in their life and has passed through the program as a participant.
That is one of the prerequisites, that you have taken the HAL course. And because everybody has to know what that kind of pain is. It's so much different from other pain. Yeah. And you have to have gone through it to know.
So we will be coming up on offering a session of HAL, the next session of HAL in January. It's going to be 7 weeks on Sunday afternoons in the parish hall, I believe starting January 14th. So how would you describe what to expect? If someone were to sign up for Healing After Loss, kind of tell them what to expect, what it would be like, because it can be hard to put yourself out there when you're in such a vulnerable place.
Well, it's, as Elizabeth said, it's 7 weeks long, but what I have to tell you is it is a Christian-based program. We are non-denominational. You can be a Baptist, a Greek Orthodox. You could be any Christian faith to take part. It is very an intimate place to be because it's only 8 people. We only take 8 people at a time.
And there's a reason for that.
There's a reason for that. We become very close with one another through our sharing of our pain. And if you have a large group, you don't get a chance to really talk too much in a large group. This is all about talking and sharing. And as facilitators and leaders in the church and on the team, we really try to be good listeners. We're not counselors. We are good listeners. And people need to share their pain. And what happens usually is that as people share their story, they become closer and closer in the room itself, in our little classroom. And pretty soon, they're sharing from such a deep place that they start to feel some comfort. The more you share, the more comfort you get. We also, our program is 7 sessions. Each session has a theme. We go through grief, the stages of grief. We talk about the brokenness that we're feeling. We talk about the suffering we're going through. And in the end, it's very hard to get through. But at the end, people most usually start to feel better. It's a slow process, and everybody's journey is different. Everybody's pace to get to the other side is different. It's not the same for everyone, but we do share a lot of common, what's the word I'm looking for? Commonality.
You're all there for the same reason, ultimately.
We're all there to share our pain.
Yeah. And a couple of things you pointed out that I think are important for the congregation to know. First of all, anyone, even from the community, can join the group.
Anybody.
I mean, we advertise it to the church. You'll see it in this week's e-news and on the website. But let's say maybe you know a neighbor who's really, really struggling. You can call Beverly, you can call the church office and refer them. And what about male and females? Is it open for everyone?
It's open for male and females together. We try and discourage a couple from taking it together, because we have found that if a man is there with his wife and she's crying, he feels the need to comfort her. They don't share all they want to share from their heart, because they may upset their spouse.
Right. Yeah.
So it sort of is better to come different times.
Yeah, and that's something that you might not think about, but when you explain it like that, that makes perfect sense, because if one spouse is upset, the other spouse is going to focus on them, not their own.
That's right.
Sharing of their grief and their thoughts and their pain. And so males and females, and it can be a mix of losses, right?
Yes.
Some people it's a spouse, sometimes it's a child, a sibling.
It can be anybody, even a best friend, for instance, or an aunt that you love dearly. It could be anyone that you love. We have a session that's called My Beloved, and that's what that is all about. The person you lost that you love.
So Beverly and I have worked together in the last 2 years to make some changes and updates and things to, you do use a curriculum, and the curriculum is there as a guide. What are some of the things that this small group that we do here at the church, we already talked about how intimate it is, but what's some things that are a little bit different from this than to go to a larger grief share group? For example, we have grief share here in the area at different churches. It's a video based, anyone can come at any time. But why do you love this curriculum and this particular model so much?
Well, first of all, because it's a small group, it is more intimate, but it's also Christ related. I mean, we have scripture, we have prayer, we have music, we have discussions, we do some surveys, people find out what kind of a griever they are. We go through the concept of hope. There is hope on the other side. All through Christ, actually, hope is there. So it's just a more comfortable place because it's in a small room with a small group, and everybody cares for one another.
Yeah. We were talking beforehand, and I think most of us have passed through losses in our life, and I told Beverly that grief to me is still a very surprising thing. You don't know, when it's going to pop up. You can't predict it. You can't control it. What do you think through the process of Hal has been maybe something that surprises people about the process of healing? Is there anything that just really seems to take a while for people to understand?
Yeah. People think when they take it that it's linear. You do this and this happens and this happens. It's not like that at all. Grieving is up and down. It's like a wave. It goes up and it comes down. You go up and you're feeling better and better, and all of a sudden you're down in the valley again. They have to learn that is normal. Grief is a universal process. Everybody in the world goes through grief. But it's how you go through it that helps you come out on the other side.
Yeah.
You have to just be open and be willing to share. When you share your pain, I tell you, it gets better.
Yeah. What do you think, if you could say anything or a couple of things to encourage people who just feel like it will never get better and who just right now feel like they're just covered in it, there's no light at the end of the tunnel, there's no hope. As someone who has passed through significant grief and has worked now with many people who have, what would you tell them?
I think it's important for people to realize that it's not a quick fix. It takes time. Sometimes it takes years. And there are people who actually have so much grief that I think they call it broken heart syndrome, that people actually pass away from because they need professional help. We're not professionals.
Right.
So people who are in that state, we will ask them to maybe seek professional help. But the key, I think, is just knowing that God is with you every step of the way.
Yeah. Now, something that I've learned through our interactions, and you can talk more about this, that you've seen time after time, God is, first of all, so faithful because we were chatting about this before too, how it doesn't seem like there will be the group brought together, because sometimes it's not something that people readily sign up for. A lot of people need to think about it, they're nervous about it, and so to get that 8 people, which doesn't sound like that many in a church our size, but it's a vulnerable thing. But God, you have seen how God puts
Absolutely.
each group, each session of how the perfect people together, and then kind of share with everybody what I know you've shared with me at the end. What happens sometimes after the group, that there is an invitation for them to continue on a little bit.
We still have groups from 2, 3, 4 years ago who meet maybe every other month for lunch. They call each other, they discuss, how they're doing. The key, I think, too, is that it's a confidential. People want to make sure that whatever they're saying does not leave the room.
Yeah.
And I've never, ever, in all the times I've done this, have heard anybody talk about anybody else that had been in that. It just doesn't happen. We know it's confidential, and we keep everything that's said in that room to ourselves.
Yeah.
And that should comfort some people who are very nervous about sharing, because sometimes the pain is so great, and you think, I just can't tell people, whatever. But you can. You can.
And I think, because I've read the curriculum and gone through it with you, I know there's a part that talks a lot about guilt. That people, we don't want to say what's really on our heart and minds because there might be some lingering anger towards our loved one. There might be things that we were frustrated with them about that now we feel guilty. Oh my goodness, I can't say those thoughts out loud because that dishonors my loved one. But I love in the curriculum there is an opportunity for people to journal their thoughts. There's an opportunity for a gratitude list.
That's right.
And talk about the letters that you write, because I think that's such a, to me, I'm a writer, I love to journal and write letters. That would be a very, I think, meaningful thing.
It is one of the most meaningful things in the whole program. It's very, very difficult to do, and people really don't want to do it. But it's just us together. Nobody else hears that. You can write a letter to your loved one, or you can have them write a letter back to you.
Which I think is kind of a really unique twist.
It is.
Because it's like you want them to think about what their loved one would be saying to them.
Exactly. And it happens that when the people do choose to write both, you don't have to, just one, but if you have your loved one write back to you, because you know your loved one so well, you know what they would say. And that brings you such great comfort to know this is what they would say to me. I know what my son would say to me.
Yeah.
And that brought me immense comfort.
Yeah. The other thing I think that right now in my mind sticks out, I think it's a beautiful curriculum in that there's a lot of, there's the spiritual side, there's the emotional side, there's the fellowship side, the bonding side, but there's also a lot of really practical steps that people can take, where it's not just about feelings anymore, but it's actually about taking tangible steps to move forward. And I know there's a whole part that gives different ideas.
Yes.
And so maybe just talk about that for a second, that there are many, many, many ways that people can start to move forward.
That's right.
And so what are some of the things that you kind of bring up?
Well, we try and tell people or share with people that the best way to move on is to do something for someone else, to do some service work. That's what happened to me. I took a Bible study with Kim Perry, and this is maybe, I don't know, 6 or 7 months after I took Hal. And then she asked me to be a manager at God's Goods Thrift Store. And from then on, for 13 years now, that has been the blessing in my life.
Yeah.
To be able to do some kind of service work for the church. So the thing to remember too is that we go through, one of the best sessions is on forgiveness. Forgiving our loved one, forgiving ourselves, forgiving family members that maybe didn't appreciate our loved one, and all kinds of forgiveness.
Yeah, because grief will bring all of that
brings it all.
up.
It brings up anger, depression,
Yeah.
anxiety, so many things. And it's important to realize that you can get through them. The point is, though, and I think this is what people have to understand, you can't, even though you think you can't, you can get through it.
I think that's one of the themes that I've heard just through this, that it's slow, it takes work, it takes vulnerability, definitely out of probably all of our comfort zones. I can't think of anyone who wants to sit in a small group and talk about their pain and be emotional and vulnerable like that with some strangers at first.
Right.
But if you're willing to do those things, and of course with the Lord's ultimate help. I mean, He's the one who leads us through the valley of the shadow of death.
That's right.
But with His help and with, taking some of those steps, there can be hope and healing on the other side.
Yeah. And you don't ever get over it, but you get through it.
Yeah.
You've got
I
to
think
remember
that's
that.
important.
You get through it.
Yeah. So we'll just tell everyone that this week in the e-news, down at the end, after all the Advent and the Christmas things, you will see a little notice that the next session of HOW will be beginning in January. We just have the church office phone number there, so if you would like to either talk to Beverly more or get information, or if you're ready to sign up, just give us a call and then we'll connect you. And I know you do a little bit of kind of an intake just to know a little bit about each person that's coming in, and so we just encourage you to think about it, pray about it, and again, if there is someone in your life that who is grieving, that might be the right step for them.
We're here to help.
Yep. And then we will offer it again. We've been offering it twice a year, but hopefully this year, fingers crossed, we're on a track to perhaps offer it 3 times a year. And I'll just say, here and there we do get calls, whether it's from church members or the community, asking about, do we have a grief support group? And we will always connect them to Beverly. And one thing maybe to point out to everyone, you usually do not advise people to take healing after loss immediately after a loss.
Right.
Can you just explain that for a second?
We found that people who want to take it like a month after their loss, it just doesn't work because they're just so emotional. They can't hear what people are saying. Yeah. And it's so difficult for them to share their pain. We like people maybe to wait 3 to 4 months before they decide they may want to try.
Yeah. And that's, again, from your experience and seeing, just the slow process of grief, that there's a season, there's a time for everything. Yeah. But we do, here in the area, usually, there's usually at least one church on Hilton Head, one church here in Bluffton, sometimes 2, and then out towards Beaufort. The National Grief Share Program, which is, I think it's a 12 to 13 week video course. And then there's discussion afterwards. It's also a come as you are able. Now this, we would ask people to commit and to be there every week unless there was, illness or emergency. But we would refer people if they called and said, oh my goodness, I need something right now, we would, do our best to refer them to a grief share. Or what I thought we would share a little bit too, some of our other care ministries. So I'm going to give Beverly a copy. We have you may have seen these on the historic campus and any of our worship services. They're at Crosspoint. They're also here in the chapel. We have just reprinted and redesigned our care ministry cards. And Dave Fisher, who's our parish chaplain, and I, and then Kelly Williamson, our graphic designer, really thought about a logo for the care ministries here at the church. And we decided to do Jesus as the Good Shepherd, and to use the Psalm 23, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want, as our verse for the ministries, because each one of these care ministries are intended to be something that can come alongside people and walk with them as Christ is walking with them through the valley, whatever that valley looks like. And so we do have, we get a lot of calls, and especially this time of year, I'm sure there are a lot of people who are feeling extra heaviness, extra burdens, extra sadness. And so we just wanted to point out, one of the things you had said is that sometimes people come to the group or call, and they really do need professional help. And so, of course, many of you will be familiar with our counseling center. So that's one of the things we added to our cards. That counseling center, Andy just actually put out his newsletter giving us a summary of the year and how many clients, how many sessions, and they're big numbers. I think the number of families and individuals served was in the 800s. I can't remember it exactly right now.
That's amazing.
Since it started. But to just remember that we have these different care ministries, and something like Healing After Loss doesn't get a ton of attention here in the church, in the sense that, it's not something that's happening all the time, and it's kind of a quieter ministry, but there are always people that you can talk to. There are always people, even if it's not time for a session, you can always reach out. And I just wanted to point out, even if you're taking Healing After Loss or doing grief support, you can also have a Stephen minister at the same time. So Stephen ministers are there. They can be there long term. This would be 7 weeks, and then the group would, be moving on, but staying connected with one another. And you were a Stephen minister once upon a time, so able to speak to that. And that's something that someone can come alongside you. They can be there, like you said, as a good listener, an empathetic, compassionate listener, and meet with you weekly for about an hour, and just be someone that you can pour out to. They are not there. You do not have to in any way pour into them. They are there to help share the burden and relieve the burden if they can a little bit. So we have our Stephen ministry team. We have caregiver support. That I actually attend not only as staff, but as my own personal, for my family. We have caregiving challenges, and I've noticed with that we have had people come through the caregiving group who are already in the process of grief, even though their loved one has not yet passed, whether it's Alzheimer's, dementia, so they feel like they're losing their loved one, who they are, whether it's just the slow decline of the body, And so if you're out there and maybe your grief comes from, a place of caregiving and stress and, watching someone you love decline, that ministry is also open to the community, as is Stephen ministry. And so, we have these cards that are available. And again, you might not need it for yourself, but always grab one, take one. If there's ever anyone in your life, your family, who just needs a little extra support, we can't fix everything. The church can't offer, every fix, every cure, but we do have a great, wonderful team of people who would love to come around you. We do our home communion. We'd have visitors, friendly visitors who would love to come and just, provide some comfort, some cheer. The wonderful dinner delivery, then that is for our members if you're ill or, have a loss. But please do give us a call, and we would love to we would love to be able to minister unto you. So I don't know if there's anything else you wanted to share about Hal.
There was, but I forgot.
Well, I can tell you just from knowing Beverly, Denise Gerber, who also helps, and spending a lot of time reading the program and things, I think it's very special. I think it's the small group model, the way that it leads you just step by step to bring those emotions to the forefront. And then you're surrounded by people, every single person there.
That's right.
Is where you are in a way. You know, they all know that feeling of pain.
And you know, the program was written and developed by Dr. Denise, I think what's her name? Susan Gill.
I think it's Susan, but
Girding.
yes.
She lost 2 of her children. And that's when she developed this program, which we no longer can get the manual for.
Yeah.
They're no longer in print. So we've used her model and rewritten it and changed it a bit and added new stuff and taken stuff out so that it's for everyone.
Yeah, and her title, I think, was Harvesting Our Tears, which I think is such a beautiful, I mean, I know that comes from Scripture. You know, those who go out with sorrow or go out, you know, with tears will come back rejoicing. There will be joy in the morning. And so I think that, and just that image speaks to what you said about, you know, taking it, your grief, you're not going to move on, but you're going to move through it, and you are going to see on the other side that there are things that you still have left to do. God has things, and so you can take your tears and harvest them into something, a way that you can pour them into other people's lives.
For sure.
And I think that's so beautiful. So we have a few more announcements to make as we finish up, and thank you for coming and talking about how.
Glad I could help.
So I'm sure we've all seen the Christmas services and the Advent services coming up. We just had the Lessons and Carols, which I think was a big, beautiful event. Lots of people. I think it was 30-something musicians and vocalists.
Oh, it was wonderful.
And then I heard that the church was packed. So this Sunday will be our next Advent offering. It will be a prayer service at Historic Campus, 4 p.m., so not 7 o'clock, which sometimes the Wednesday nights are 7, but this will be a 4 o'clock. And it's just going to be a quiet service. Dave Fisher will be there. Pastor Jonathan will be there. It'll be just a time to reflect, to meditate, and we will have prayer teams there for individual prayer. So, and especially if you do find the Christmas season a little overwhelming, I think this is a wonderful offering that you can still participate, but knowing that it will be a quieter occasion. And then that will be almost immediately followed 2 days later on Tuesday. We're going to have the Advent Quiet Morning. And if you've never been to a quiet morning, I attended the one through Holy Week. And it was so wonderful. It's Rebecca Hamilton is going to be our leader, and she's going to do a couple of short teachings about waiting, I believe is the theme. But then after each teaching, you are given the space and the time you can go anywhere on the historic campus. If it's a nice day, you can grab a chair and go outside. You're given space to think, to pray, to journal, to kind of meditate on some of the themes that she'll be presenting. So if you've never done something like that, anyone's welcome, and you don't have to come armed with anything. Just come on in, maybe bring a pen, but just come and be willing to receive. And then, of course, we'll have all of our Christmas services, and the big thing to point out is Christmas Eve is a Sunday this year. So that's going to change just a few things. If you are a Cross Point attendee, which you are, I am, we will not have evening services at Cross Point. We will have a 9 a.m. and a 10:30, just a one-time only 9 a.m., and that will be our Christmas Eve services at Cross Point. And then there will be here at the chapel a 5 p.m. service, but no Sunday morning here at the chapel. See, we're going to test all of you to see how well everybody's reading and paying attention. And then, of course, we'll have the historic campuses, an 8 p.m. high mass, 10 p.m. high mass, same thing, the high mass here at the chapel, and then for those of you who enjoy a Christmas morning, we'll have a 10 a.m. Quiet service. So plenty of cards. As Father Owens always tells us, this is the best time of year to invite people because the songs are familiar, the decorations are familiar, and I don't know if you can see, we do have the lights up here behind us with the trees. We have all the wreaths around. Everyone's in that, we're all in the same season together, even if people don't always know the reason for it like we do. So we've got those coming up, and then let me reach behind me here. I have a couple more things. We just want to say thank you to everyone who has turned in their pledge card, their Time, Talent, Treasure pledge card for the year, who have either pledged finances or also made a commitment to serve here in the church, hopefully, and or that you've done both. If there's a ministry that you've been thinking about doing, or maybe someone invites you to do it, like Kim Perry invited you so long ago to step into the God's Goods leadership position, at the very least pray about it. You never know. God, I think, likes to kind of knock on our doors when it's least expected and even offer things that we would not necessarily think that that would be our thing. So if you have any questions about these, if you have not turned it in and think that, oh, it's too late, it's not too late. They're still coming in. You can drop them off in the offering baskets. You can mail them in. And if you need one, you can just come by the church office and get one. And so just be prayerful about serving in 2024 because there's still lots of need in the community. 2023, a lot's been done, but there's still plenty to do. And then we'll just finish up today as we usually do with just a remembrance of the food bank. I saw the numbers this morning. 338 families came through yesterday. So we're definitely over 300 right now for the holiday season for sure. And Craig Pelly and his team, they're working on their Christmas food boxes. So they give every family in another week or two will get a nice box of actual kind of holiday foods. So there's a few items left that they need, some box scallop potatoes, some cookie or brownie mix, and I believe peas. I assume canned peas for the dinner. But the big needs this week are cereal, always cereal. That's the one thing they cannot buy in bulk as they do for certain items. So cereal, and pasta sauce. And I know sometimes the plastic pasta sauces are better, or the cans, because I've been there when glass has fallen. And but if you see any out there on your shopping trips this week, please remember the food bank, and especially this time of year, because we know that it's expensive anyway, but this time of year with gifts and extra festivities, it definitely can place a financial burden on the families. So I think we did a pretty good job today. No. Just thank you to Beverly for coming and for sharing about how. And again, if you have any questions about any ministry, whether or not you want to volunteer or if you would like to participate, just give the church office a call, give me a call. Y'all know Sue up front at the front desk. She'll be happy to answer any questions. And for those of you especially who are just feeling like that grief is not something that you can shake off on your own, which none of us can. Please know that we have people here who have been where you are, who understand, and who would love to come alongside you. And so again, look for the house, sign up, and we would love to hear from you. So I think that wraps it up for today. So everybody, I hope you have a great week and go in peace to love and serve the Lord.
Thanks be to God.
You got your cue right.
Got my cue.